Greetings, my name is Timothy Halloran. I am a speakerphone for those few and far between, those souls sensitive and connected to the natural seasons and cycles of the earth. It is good to know that we exist, that we're out there, and that we are going through this shared passageway of collective time together. In these videos, we're talking about the nature of the times, focusing on a new moon in the sign of Virgo approaching this August 30th, 2019, and we're discussing the end of August, the beginning of September 2019. Now, these last few weeks, we've had the inner planets, Venus, Mars, and the Sun, enter the sign of Virgo. This last weekend, August 24th and 25th, we had Venus conjoin Mars, and we are beginning a new Venus-Mars cycle. That cycle began at 4 degrees of the sign of the Virgin. And then approaching this Friday, again, August 30th, the new moon in Virgo will be at 6 degrees of the sign of the Virgin. And so the first 10 degrees of Virgo, pay attention to what's going on in your chart. The first 10 degrees of the earth signs are going to be receiving a lot of focused energy, and there can be a lot of change and healing happening in the first 10 degrees of the mutable signs. So there is an energetic momentum towards Earth, towards reality, towards our bodies, towards the three-dimensional. And this Venus-Mars conjunction, this new cycle that just began this last weekend, is going to be a new cycle, bringing focus to the relationship between Venus, our values, and how we're sharing them with others, and Mars, our own individual desires and direction. We're forming a new cycle of how our independence is related and connecting to others, as well as sexuality, creativity, and very much our bodies. This Venus-Mars conjunction is like a annual-ish new moon for our bodies, and it's an opportune time for us to be really cleaning slate, beginning new directions, initiating new schedules, new rituals, new diets, new routines that are making us feel cleared out, purified, cleansed, and empowered. All good things, Virgo. And Virgo tends to bring us to where the work needs to happen. Virgo allows us to focus, to put our heads down. And sometimes the movement into Virgo can be humbling. We can recognize the work that needs to be done, what is not already perfect, that is inviting personal development or revision and rectification. And yet this is an opportunity for us to really get this work done, to form these new relationships and directions that can be empowering. Now, the last couple Venus-Mars cycles began in the sign of Virgo, going back to the end of 2015. We can say we've been working on our relationships, bodies, and sexualities for a while, and there is still room to grow. The good news is the next Venus-Mars cycle will begin in Leo in July of 2021. Now, again, this is going to bring a lot of healing to our bodies. This Venus-Mars conjoinment, this new moon approaching in Virgo, is forming a beautiful trine to Uranus, a quincunx to Chiron, and also squaring to asteroid Ceres. This is going to bring a lot of focus and a lot of awareness to our own energy systems. Virgo rules energy systems. And Virgo is this partitioning, breaking apart, discerning, in order to regulate this energy, in order to really discern and filter out what we need versus what we want, what it is that we're trying to bring in versus what it is that we're sweeping out. And this can be a very cleansing time. This is a wonderful time to initiate these new diets, these new activities, these new cleanses that are very empowering. And we'll talk about the need to not be overly forceful in these new directions that can be forming. Rather, this trine to Uranus is like really initiating something new, something that can be an exploration. It's beginning. It doesn't have to all be totally known. And that flexibility and excitement to simply experiment is what can yield the greatest results, taking us through this next month, but also this next year and a half to come. This is really sowing, again, this like a super new moon for our bodies, for our energy systems that can really be initiating these new directions that can unfold into beautiful pictures and take us very far. This next month can really be this momentum, this pushing, and this initiation of the new pace, the new rituals, the new routines that can really set this new fresh energy and this new container, really bringing it into place. Now, the square to Ceres is really bringing up this dynamic tension between taking care of ourself versus taking care of others, between this Venus-Mars new cycle beginning square to Ceres and then the new moon this Friday also square to Ceres. This is very much bringing up this tension of family, relationships, traditions, what we would like to do versus what we have the energy to do, who we would like to connect with versus the time and space we have to fill up our own glass, to be in tune with our own needs. And so when we deal with this family dynamic, and asteroid Ceres can really deal with the family. She's a very mother-like asteroid, similar to the moon or the sign of Cancer. And the family may be one of the best examples of where we tend to experience this dynamic tension of self-care versus care of other the most. And the reason why is the arena of family tends to be the area where we experience this natural clash versus expectation, traditions, what our parents want us to be, or what makes our parents happy, for example, versus the complex diversity of human nature, the diversity of unique individual human expressions. And here oftentimes we experience this conflict of what we need as individuals versus our family or our kids or our spouses. And yeah, this is a theme that we can really be experiencing at this time, and it's not all easy. I mean, when we think of the mythology of Ceres, Ceres has her daughter Persephone kidnapped by Pluto, the god of the underworld, and then basically has to form an arrangement of joint custody with her daughter between her new husband, the lord of the underworld, and she only gets to see her this many times a day. And this is an emotional crisis for Ceres, and yet inherent in this myth of Ceres and Persephone. This is actually one of the most rich and treasured Greek myths that there is, as it has to do with the cycles, the experience of life, the dance of union and separation. And boy, oh boy, these themes can be coming up at this time. We're talking about Cancer, Capricorn, Virgo, Pisces, polarity themes. This balance between taking care of ourselves versus expectation, our dreams and our goals versus reality. And we've had Saturn on the moon's south node since March, right? Saturn stationed retrograde in March, and that south node and Saturn have been traveling together March, April, May, June, July, August, through this next month when Saturn will finally station direct mid-September. This Saturn transiting on the moon's south node for a huge chunk this year is very dark, is very heavy. It is bringing up some of the greatest challenges of our life, where Saturn is bringing up the limitations of society, the expectations of the world, these prisons that we get bound to via these expectations or via the laws, via society's prejudices and historical stigmas. We are really coming up against these things. And this Cancer-Capricorn polarity, I find this to be probably the polarity where the most challenges are faced. Again, if we think of this challenge of family and time for connection versus our work and money and expectation, this is typically where we face the greatest challenges in our current societies in this day and age. So absolutely, we're dealing with these Saturnarian themes. And the mythology of Saturn is Saturn eats his own children. The mythology of the Pied Piper leading the children away. And with this Ceres square to Venus and Mars, we can also be reflecting back to our own childhood. When was our own self-autonomy thwarted? When was our own independence blocked off? And how may we have been led into shortchanging ourselves or shortchanging others? As this Saturn theme can also really be bringing up this reality of karma. What comes around goes around, and wounded child becomes the next oppressor, wounding the next generation of children. This is a real dynamic, and we are having this dynamic brought close to our faces. It's not just out there in the world. It's not just bad guys causing these cycles of repetition. It is in our own families. It's in our own history. It's in our own lives. It is a part of our own healing journey. We have to rescue and revive our own forgotten inner children. And now is this time where this real depth, this real emotion, as to this real situation, the actual emotions of this lifelong story, the history of what we've experienced, the unfairness of it, the oppressiveness of it, the isolation of it can really be getting swept up. We've got Neptune at 17 degrees Pisces in a disseminating trine to the moon's north node at 16 degrees Cancer. There is this opportunity to really get to know the depth of our own personal story, but yes, it can be coming through these deep feelings. This is a time of grieving. This is a time of mourning as a necessary releasing of emotions, and simultaneously a necessary remembrance of the past. And it's happening simultaneously as we are releasing and processing the past. We are liberating and clearing space for what is new and different in the future. And we are reverberating intensely between the past and the future. Here's the old, forgotten, imprisoned inner child's emotions being released, informing me of our past story, awakening us to the directions that inner child is illuminating for us. This is how we rescue, this is how we revive that forgotten inner child, and we're coming back into our soul's essence through this process. This inner child is our soul, is informing us from the inside out. And particularly this last week of August and this first week of September, between Venus, Mars, the new moon, all conjoined in these early degrees of Virgo, let us hit the reset button from the inside out. And here's where I encourage us to set our compass towards our bodies, to really use our bodies as a way of discerning what's right, what's wrong, and how we can find that happy medium. And the reason why this is tricky is we're having to form new patterns of how we're relating in our families, in our relationships, in our work, in our associations, by limiting where we could have been overextending or overspending or over getting wrapped up in other people's dramas. Some of the keys to this Virgo period where we can be implementing healthier structures, rituals, and dynamics is some key Virgo words: healthy boundaries, self-autonomy, partitioning me time and they time, saying no more often. I'm available from these hours to these hours. You're calling me when I'm not available. I'm sorry, call me another day. This is my room, this is where I go to retreat, and this is where we go to hang out together. This is when we're having time with the family, and this is when we're having time to liberate our past, to do this emotional processing and take care of ourselves. This Ceres and Sagittarius, as well as Uranus and Taurus, in some way, shape, or form, can be calling us back to nature or honoring our own personal nature. What we need to feel truly relaxed and truly connected to the earth is a thing to really honor. And we're honoring this by tuning into our bodies. Our bodies is like the telephone to our unconscious field. And we're including physical feelings, emotional feelings, and doing this type of body scanning, allowing your consciousness to move from your feet and sweep up to the top of your head and back down and feel all of the physical, emotional feelings, where they're coming from, what they're connected to. This is the way to directly commune with and be informed from the inside out, the divine feminine. And the reason why this body scanning and tuning into the divine feminine can be so useful to us right now is our unconscious knows more than we do. Our unconscious is the majority of our intelligence. It has access to all of our memories, all of our dreams. It remembers the whole picture. It remembers our real needs, even the forgotten needs, even the wounded forgotten needs that were swept under the rug and made unconscious because it was too painful for us to hold on to or remember. Our body remembers. And by telephoning our body, by tuning into our body, this is an excellent way to find that middle path and form the bridge between Virgo, which is reality. It's what's needed. It's where our focus needs to go. It's our work. It's our service. It's our actual role in the world, our role in relationships that we have to be grounded in order to survive, in order to be alive, in order to be a human being. We are a closed circuit energy system, and we do have to make sure that these filtration systems are not letting everything in. Because all you have to do is spend 5 minutes in the world before you will realize that there are things in the world and the collective that must be kept out, or else we will go down in this downward spiral. So we have to focus on reality. We have to keep ourselves moving. And that ritual, that routine, is a way to keep ourselves feeling well functioning. And we also have dreams, we have goals, Pisces, the spiritual world, our heart, our ideals for how we'd like to live in the world, how we'd like to be with our family. We have to keep these things in balance. When we go too far into getting lost in the everyday rituals of Virgo, that routine and schedule that we've grown so accustomed to, that it's like the glue that keeps our sense of well-functioning held together. And yet this glue becomes like a sticky trap and we start to feel lost, like an empty husk of meaninglessness and triviality and just being like a empty machine when we lose a sense of meaning and significance and purpose. And if we overly idealize the dreams, the goals, where we should be instead of where we are, it should be perfect, it should be finished, it should be complete. We should be in that perfect heaven realm right now. Oh my goodness, we did the positive manifestation. Why is it not happening right now? Because that's not how life works. And positive manifestation is one of the ways that I witness souls really beating and hurting themselves because they have these idealistic expectations that does not necessarily dream our reality into existence. No, we have to go back and forth. We have to go between the three-dimensional and that idealistic sense of where we are moving that is beckoning us forward, and yet the closer we get to it, the further it seems to go away from us. Why is this? Because life is an eternal upward spiral. And Virgo focuses on what needs healing, what needs rectification, what is not already perfect, which is simply that next step up the staircase. The key is in the millipede's movement, with all of those legs simply flowing one leg after the next in a natural, effortless momentum where the millipede is not overthinking leg 101 following leg 102, otherwise that millipede will trip over itself. It will become overwhelmed, it will become over-perplexed, too many bits and pieces, too much information, and it's not all finished and it's not all perfect. We're not at the finish line yet. Rather, we allow our eyes to be focused on the prize, to have that ideal, that dream, like a flame in our heart, energizing and motivating us forward. And yet we do not expect or anticipate perfection, but rather the gift, the goal, and the transcendent quality that Virgo can bring is the recognition, the wisdom that all of this practice and all of this work is what the human experience is, what life is all about. We weren't supposed to get all this right. We weren't supposed to get all this perfect. You can let all of that shame and all of that guilt go, because the guilt and the shame is the byproduct of unhealthy standards, unhealthy ideals that we carry on our shoulders as if we're supposed to have everything done and right. I gotta say, living here in America, it amazes me how much the American dream has really wounded the people of this nation. For so many decades, we've saw these billboards of the perfect, happy, smiling family and the guy going to work and coming home and Betty Crocker in the kitchen and happy, perfect meals. And it really sets the stage for failure. It really sets the stage for inadequacy and guilt, because our families aren't ever going to look like that, because that's not what family is. That's not what human life is. That's not even what we should be prioritizing or what we should be saying life is all about. Yes, we can have vacations. Yes, we can have times where we check out and we set time down to have a break. And I encourage you all to be integrating this in with your new healthy diets, schedules, routines, and standards. With Saturn on the South Node, we cannot be overly militant or overly forceful with these standards, these expectations, where we set these high, lofty goals and then end up self-combusting or exploding because we set impossible standards for ourself. Venus is going to come up to Neptune the first week of September, followed by Mars mid-September. We can embrace practice, the practice of finding a balance between what is meaningful and keeping our chin up and that light at the end of the tunnel that's keeping us moving, and the fact that we don't have to be there now. It's not practice makes perfect. It's practice makes practice. One of my therapists have been giving me that one-liner, and it's one of my favorite one-liners now. We all need more practice. We all need more therapists. We all need more help, more helpers, more service, more healing. And this is where the future is going. This is the future of humanity. The future of humanity is not recognizing, oh my gosh, we discovered all of these technologies to make the American dream real, and now we don't have to do anything, and we can sit by the pool and sip lemonade our whole lives. That's never going to happen. The future of humanity is technology and medicine is going to continue to evolve, and the healing journey of humanity is going to continue to evolve, leaving behind the fight to survive, dog-eat-dog, factory work, human era, and entering the human era of now we're cleansing the emotional fields, now we're healing mental disorders, now we are acknowledging the full spectrum of human diversity, and look at all of these different expressions, and look at all of these different ways consciousness can form, these different phenomenons, and it's not just good versus evil and black versus white and the winners and the losers and the people are going to heaven and the people that are going to hell. That's the future of humanity, getting more complex, more intricate, but richer, more expressive, more beautiful. And so this focusing on Virgo can be an honoring of our service, and tuning into our inner child and tuning into our bodies is an excellent way to discern those dreams and goals that we want versus those rituals, schedules, diets, and relationships that we need. Take it to your body, do the body scan, because I find our physical and emotional bodies tuning into that intuitive, instinctual, this is what the body's saying to do, can form that excellent bridge that resolves the paradox between what we want versus what we need. In many respects, this is our lives. This is our lifetimes. Our soul is creating this journey that is formed by the bridge between what we want versus what we need. And so this is a really wonderful experiment. This is a really wonderful dynamic to explore. And we're deconditioning the old expectations, old standards. We have to discern natural guilt versus unnatural guilt. Am I feeling guilty because I thought I'd be perfect? Am I feeling guilty because my parents told me not to be who I am when I was 5 years old? We have to discern these things. And if it's unnatural guilt coming from these conditioned standards and expectations from the past, that's probably exactly what we're going to be defying and breaking the rules of to create healthier standards, rituals, and diets. And so there's a lot to celebrate and get excited by, as much as this is a go back to school type of time. Virgo can be extremely humbling if we don't want to go back to school, if we want summer vacation to go on forever. And yet if we can be excited by the go back to school, if we can have all our pencils nicely sharpened and laid out in the corner of our desk and have our planners and our whiteout and everything ready to go because we're excited to go back to school, we're excited to receive this tutorage that's going to shape and mold us into being these experts, these technicians, these healers in the world, then this can be an awesomely productive month to come. Seize the opportunity with the Sun, Venus, Mars, grand Earth trine between Pluto and Saturn. As long as we are balancing that inner child's needs to acknowledge our unique nature, what's emotionally fulfilling to us, what's providing a sense of meaning and purpose, we're not just sacrificing. We can be productive, we can get work done, we can really move things forward this month to come. So I am absolutely wishing you all the best. We've got asteroid Juno just entering the sign of Virgo August 23rd through November 3rd, giving us this focus on personal development, fixing, finding these resolutions in our relationships, to find these healthy ways of coming together that's mutually supportive. And today we have asteroid Pallas Athena entering the sign of Scorpio now through November 8th. And so we can really be discovering these deep, these brilliant, transformative, earth-shattering, new directions and powerful ideas that can be catalyzing transformation. It is an excellent time to get into a new, fresh, clean, moving energy, maximum productivity with a prioritization of self-care being included in our productivity. It's not overly militant, beating ourselves up into good health. It's honoring our body, our divine feminine, and our inner child. What's slow and what's gentle is even more nurturing, even more energizing, even more fulfilling, and laying that healthy balance for our health standards of what feels good good and what is actually keeping us cleaned out and focused simultaneously. Make sure you are not supplementing any superficial medicines in place for the authentic needs. Make sure you're not bypassing, self-sacrificing, or settling for what's not working. The crises and the falling apart is to wake us up, to spur this investigation of how we can make changes that will bring a vast amount of improvement and personal development into our life. Speaking of Virgo, healing and personal development. Speaking of Uranus, reinvention and what is fresh and new. And speaking of the moon's north node and coming into emotional support and care, I am offering a raffle where you can win an astrology reading from me, you can win the new Uranus workshop, or you can join 2 months of my Patreon group. And I have to say, one of the most exciting things that I look forward to the most in terms of how I'm relating to astrology, the Q&A group that I do with my Patreon community is awesome. We pull out our charts, we let astrology do the talking, and there's so much opportunity to learn and grow. So anyways, you can win all of these prizes, $10 tickets to enter the Uranus raffle. Winners will be announced September 1st. I will be doing a live drawing. And so for those interested, check out that raffle. Otherwise, I look forward to connecting to you next time. Again, wishing absolutely the best to yourself as we begin these new directions, as we clean house and set new clean orientations. Gonna turn off the motor mouth now. Take care.